Hey guys, welcome on into the Space Cowboy Show. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day today. What we're going to be talking about here is the aftermath of the Micah Parsons trade. Now that we're a couple weeks removed, we're into the season now, and the emotions of that initial transaction now subsided. I think we can have more of an honest dialogue regarding what happened and really think about, okay, did the Cowboys make the right move, what's going on, and how it's going to shape them up for the future. Now, before we dive fully into that, if you could do me a favor, please hit the like button. It doesn't take too long to do, free and easy to do, and on top of that, it helps the channel out in the YouTube algorithm. Next, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe if you're new so you get more Dallas Cowboys content here on Kretschman Media, and go check out the other shows on the network. Hit the notification bell as well if you haven't done so already so you don't miss out on new content when it comes out. And finally, if you want to support the channel further, you can hit that channel membership. That way, you can support me further in doing what I do here. All that out of the way, let's go ahead and dive into the Micah Parsons trade and where we're at currently. As we are well aware of, the Dallas Cowboys made a trade with the Green Bay Packers to move Micah Parsons over there, and in exchange, they received Kenny Clark and 2 first-round picks, one in 2026 and one in 2027. Now, I've gone on record and said you could have gotten more for Micah Parsons, and I still believe that. I think that for me, the one thing that irks me about this front office is the inability to understand when to move off of a player and when to re-sign a player. And that's something that isn't just a one-off this year. This has been notorious for the Cowboys front office over the past decade plus. They fail to understand the type of talent that they have in the player and what they can get for them. And we saw with what happened with Micah Parsons, the fact that you got 2 first-round picks for an edge rusher / linebacker is impressive, but considering how good he is at the position and what he does, and knowing how other teams view him as a commodity, I think that you definitely could have gotten a lot more. I believe that if you were going to trade Micah Parsons, you should have done it prior to the beginning of the 2025 NFL draft. That way you can ensure that your offseason is spent around trying to build up the defense without him, and on top of that, maybe you can get players that are going to help you now as opposed to just waiting. And you probably could have gotten some of those players, but knowing how the 2025 NFL draft, in my opinion, was a bit weak in the first round, aside from the top players in the draft, I can kind of understand they're thinking of, hey, we're going to see what we can do to re-sign him, but it got ugly, and here we are. Now, you trading him a week before the season began also doesn't help you, because now you have to redo what you were planning on doing, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Of course, it's going to impact what you do this year, but it's setting you up in 2026 and 2027 to add more talent onto the defense and disperse cheap talent, more specifically, which is what the Cowboys really like, across the defense so that you can get better impact than just having one player. That's what the Cowboys are thinking. Now, I would have loved to have Micah Parsons here still. I think that he is a fantastic player, and he deserves every penny of the contract that he got. Now, there is the line of thinking that, okay, if you don't want to pay Micah Parsons all this money because you're going to have your salary cap tied up to one player and about 50% of the cap to a bunch of players, okay, if that's your philosophy, then what you need to do is when you move off of him, you need to go and sign all of the players that you need to so you can get this taken care of and make it look like that, yes, we actually have a plan for what we're doing. And the Cowboys have shown inclinations of that. The Dallas Cowboys re-signed DaRon Bland to a 4-year contract. They re-signed Hunter Lipke. They even re-signed Tyler Smith early, which is phenomenal. I was not expecting that whatsoever from the Dallas Cowboys. And here we are, where when you look on the offensive side of the ball, they are looking more like a complete core where everybody's under contract, and the only 2 starters on offense that aren't under contract are Javonte Williams and George Pickens, which could change. Now, I didn't mention the Jake Ferguson contract because, of course, he was re-signed before Micah was traded, but again, it goes to the point that, okay, they are dispersing the money around the team, and I want to be clear, I understand that the players that we're talking about, with the exception of Tyler Smith, aren't the best players at their position like Micah Parsons is. However, if you feel like these guys are integral to your team, you want to keep them, you need to get ahead of the curve, which is exactly what the Dallas Cowboys did. And if you look at the details of all of the contracts that have been signed, they're easy out for the Cowboys after the next couple of seasons. So that way you're not strapped for cash if the player doesn't turn out, which again, every situation's a gamble when it comes to having these players under contract, regardless of who it is. But the fact of the matter is you need to make sure they're under contract That way you can complete your roster stability and you can focus your attention elsewhere, which is exactly where I think the Cowboys are trying to do. With the fact that your offense is more or less signed and also taken care of, and they're young or on cheap contracts because their rookies are on their rookie scale contracts still, you can look at the defense and you could say to yourself, hey, you know what? We could take the first round picks that we have over the next 2 years and just throw it all on the defensive side of the ball, which I think could be the case. Or if you feel like you have the luxury to do a particular move, we could see the Cowboys, I don't know, take another receiver if George Pickens is in here. If they feel like they want to add another running back, they can do that, which I'm not implying they do that in the first round because we don't know who's going to come out. And on top of that, I'm pretty sure you can get some of the productive guys in rounds 2 and 3 if you really wanted to, but I digress. From the Packers angle of it, and I want to make this very clear for Cowboys fans that were upset with the trade, you have to understand that the Dallas Cowboys are in a position where if they weren't going to win a championship with Micah Parsons, it makes no sense to hold on to him, especially with the return that you can get for him. And considering the fact that, again, it's very rare to see a trade like this happen. The last time that a trade like this happened was when Khalil Mack was traded to the Chicago Bears from the Las Vegas Raiders, well, at the time, Oakland Raiders. They got the ammunition that they needed to try and rebuild and revamp that team. They just swung and missed. The only player that they really got productive out of that trade was Josh Jacobs, but that goes to the other point that I had, which is while the Dallas Cowboys have the ammunition to do what they want to do, they need to make sure they hit in the draft because we've clearly seen that the Cowboys refuse to spend a ton of money in free agency outside of their own players. So if they really want to get this team where it wants to go, which is to win a championship, they need to hit on those first-round picks because if they don't, and Micah Parsons continues to be a productive player for the Packers, and they go and win a championship, now you're going to look like a complete idiot for doing this move. And I want to be extremely clear that the Cowboys are losers in the short term because you're moving off of a player that was going to help you this season. But at the same time, we won't know how the Cowboys fare for the next 2 seasons, assuming they don't make moves with those first-round picks, or it could even last longer if they decide to trade the first-round pick that the Packers gave to them. Let's say it ends up being pick 30 or 32, and they're like, you know what? Let's go ahead and trade back into the second round. We can get some more draft capital and all this other stuff. Then it turns from just you're getting 2 more players, aside from having Kenny Clark, to maybe 3 or 4 or even more. And you can even turn those picks into proven NFL talent. That's where I think that for the Cowboys, and we're expecting a lot from them to do that, which they have not shown the propensity to do so, despite the fact that Jerry said in the press conference, oh, you don't know what we can do? We can trade these first-round picks for other players, which I completely doubt they do. Either way, I think the Cowboys are set up nicely moving forward when you look at what they have. But that's the thing. They are set up for the future and not for this season. That doesn't mean the Cowboys can't be successful in 2025. However, they are looking at this in the long game. And this is very reminiscent of what happened between 2011 and 2013. The Cowboys had a soft rebuild and then they tried to contend in 2014 and we saw what happened obviously in that season, how great it was. And it ended in heartbreak. But with moving off of Micah Parsons and getting those 2 first-round picks, this is going to accelerate that process of the soft rebuild, where rather than it maybe taking like 2 to 3 years, it can maybe just take 1 or 2, depending on how some of these players pan out and how you re-sign the other players. I still think the Cowboys can make the playoffs given the talent on their roster, but them winning a championship is out of the cards, in my personal opinion. And just want to harp on this for other Cowboys fans that were not a fan of the move, that were thinking that the Cowboys were stupid for getting rid of Micah Parsons. You have to understand it from this perspective. If the Green Bay Packers do not win a championship with Micah Parsons, no matter what he puts up on the stat sheet and how great of a player he is, they're going to look like dumbasses, especially if those first-round picks turn into great players. And we don't know where the Packers would utilize those draft picks and things of that accord. But again, That's how I'm looking at it and how other people should be looking at it. Of course, the Cowboys are going to be losers in the short term, but in the long term, they can end up being winners. And that's not me having a Stockholm syndrome of, oh my God, they traded away my guy from Penn State who, again, as someone that was a huge advocate for having Micah Parsons here, it's like, oh, it's this, that, and the third. Listen, it's not a cope. It's not anything like that. The fact is that you got a haul of draft picks that no one has seen since the Khalil Mack trade, and I don't know if we'll ever see something like this happen again. It's not like the Herschel Walker trade where it's going to result in a dynasty, but where I will be very clear on this is that as we look at the transactions that were made from the Cowboys after this move, the assets that they're getting, and things of that nature, it does look like the Cowboys actually, for once, have a plan to really put this defense back into a position where they can stop the run, they can add talented players, and more importantly, on the offensive side of the ball, if they really want to go add a luxury pick, whether that be like Jeremiah Love or another running back in the first round, which I'm not imploring they do, but it allows them to have that flexibility on reconstructing the roster in a manner that can help them win a championship. As long as Dak Prescott's playing great football, as long as the offense is humming, especially with what we're seeing when it comes to the play calling, the way they're running the football, I think the Cowboys are in great shape moving forward. But depending on how you are as a fan is going to really make what you look at this season for. And to me, this is a stepping stone to 2026 into 2027. And so we're going to live in the now. We'll talk about the game versus the Bears upcoming on the next live show. But I really want to be clear as I close out this video here today and as we archive this to see how things have aged as the Micah Parsons trade moves forth. Right now, if the season were to end today, the Cowboys would have the 13th overall pick and the Packers would have the 32nd overall pick. There have been a lot of teams that start out 2-0 that miss the playoffs, and I'm not saying the Packers are going to miss the playoffs, but things can happen throughout a 17-game season. And so if something happens to the Packers, you could end up with a better pick, and it's up to you as the Cowboys to make a decision as to what that pick becomes. But again, if you don't have a plan for what you're going to do, now that we're seeing it happen in real time, and okay, maybe they do have a plan, but if you don't know what you're doing, and you're just panicking, and you're just doing this out of spite, it's going to hurt you. But yeah, having 4 first-round picks in the next 2 seasons, and knowing what the Cowboys have done in the draft, hopefully they don't miss on those picks, right? We don't want them turning into Taco or Mozzie levels of busts. I think for me, if those picks turn into calibers of players where they are good starters or even all-pro players, you're going to have a win in my books, especially when we're talking about you can even trade up in the draft now and get a very good player like a Caleb Downs, who I think would help transform this defense into something even better, especially with how the safety room is going to look next year. But yeah, I really like what, as we're moving forward, we're seeing what the Cowboys are doing on offense. If they can continue to do that, it's just the defense that needs work, which I believe we all had an inclination that it needed to have some work done on it. But I really am pleased with the direction that we're going in. But just because I say that doesn't mean that I'm letting these guys off the hook. The fact is that you need to be better at this. If you want to talk about other positions like Dak Prescott or CeeDee Lamb or other players, if you feel like these players aren't worth the money, or you are having I don't know if I should pay them, then you shouldn't be paying them and you should move on. Not this squeamish, because that's what I hate about it. Other teams are decisive, they're proactive, the Cowboys are reactive. So we're going to see what happens moving forward. But guys, tell me what you think. Do you believe the Dallas Cowboys made a mistake trading Micah Parsons? Did they not get enough? Do you like where the team's going? I really want to hear what you guys have to say. But with that, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please, again, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and join on in as a member if you want to support me further. I will see you guys on Saturday to talk about this upcoming game against the Chicago Bears and some of the injury news that the Cowboys have had as we move through the season. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Have a good one. Goodbye.